Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted in the relationship subreddit by a user named Tobbs13. The post is titled, "I've been in love with my best friend since I first met him. It's not going away and I don't know how to deal with it. I have no idea if he likes me and it's stopping me from meeting someone else. Honestly, this is pretty straightforward. We met about 2 years ago and I instantly had a crush on the guy. I honestly thought our first few nights out were dates, up until the point he went on a rant about a girl he had a crush on after a few beers. At that point, my thought process was pretty much okay, not dates, got it, and moved on with the intent of friendship. Except, funny thing, turns out he checks all my boxes. I have never gotten along with anyone this well. People are shocked to find out we haven't known each other for years. We have the same humor, like the same games and TV shows, agree on politics, want the same things in life all well enough to get along, but still with enough differences that we can have conversations about it. We discover bands together, we help each other with work and writing papers. I call him when I'm sad, and we both think it feels weird to not see each other for a week. Problem is, I'm completely head over heels in love with the man, and it is starting to get to the point where I don't know what to do. I thought it'd go away, but every time I meet him, it's like I'm falling all over again. My friends have gone from teasing me about it to shooting me pitying looks whenever his name is brought up. My sister wants me to just stop seeing him. I go a week without talking to him and I think I'm starting to get over it, but whenever I see him again, it all comes rushing back. I don't know what to do. It hurts and it's not fun anymore. I've been on dates with some amazing guys who liked me, but my feelings for my friend are stopping me from falling for someone else. It's starting to feel pathetic, and at this point I see no good option. He's my best friend, the best I've ever had, and I just don't want to lose him at this point. I think asking him out would achieve that, since it's been so long since we met. I know the only way to get over someone is to stop seeing them, but I don't want to lose my best friend. The finishing touch keeping me on the hook are these looks he gives me. I've had other friends confirm he does this because I was honestly starting to think I was losing my mind. Whenever we're out in a group, at a party, or the pub, whenever I look over at him, it seems he's always looking at me, and these eye contacts last way too long to be normal, like a good 6 to 7 seconds of us just looking at each other across the table, or the room, or the bar, and he does this little smile. I've never seen it on him in any other situation. I don't know what it means. I have no idea why we do this or how it came to be, but it's the final nail in this coffin of hopelessness I'm buried in right now. I don't know if I'm crazy and overinterpreting things, or if I should just give it a shot and ask him out, even though it might ruin the friendship, or just stop seeing him, or to just carry on and hope this feeling goes away at some point in the distant future. I'm so frustrated I want to cry, and have cried a lot. I just don't know what to do here. A deleted user said, "So ask him out already. The problem is you won't be able to move on to other guys because this thought about him will always be in the back of your head, lingering over your other relationships." User I Only Stay Up said, "Ask him out. Even if it doesn't work out, you'll still have closure and get to move on. You're feeling so frustrated because you have all this energy that you're not letting out. To be honest, it sounds like you're both playing it too cool. It honestly sounds like he feels the exact same way as you, even down to being paralyzed by fear. The extended gazes and smirks are a dead giveaway, as well as bringing up other girls to try and throw you off. I think you should be bold and tell him you want him to take you out on a date. See if his face glows red. I say this too because instead of just asking him out, this will force him to realize he needs to take action just like you. Even if it doesn't work out, you two will remain friends if you want, or you'll stop wasting all this energy." 5 years later, OP provided us with an update. A little over 5 years ago, I made a post on this subreddit looking for advice on how to handle my incredibly painful unrequited love for my best friend. I'd honestly forgotten about this until making a password reset on another account. But as I read through the post, I remember how very comforting and terrifying the responses to my post were, being a more or less unanimous ask him out that scared me to death. Sorry that this isn't really a happy update, but I don't know. It felt weird seeing something I wrote in what feels like a different life, and the people who responded seemed so genuinely kind and trying to help. I feel like I weirdly owe some kind of update, especially for that one dear sweet commenter whose account is now deleted. I so wish I'd have a way to reach out to them because that was one of the most thoughtful comments I think I've ever gotten. And just to recap, with hindsight, I really was in love with this man, and I had been for about 2 years, like full 9 yards in love, struggling to breathe when he talked about someone else, but still cheering him on because he deserved happiness levels of in love. If that sounds a bit like obsession to you, then that's because it probably was. The thing about unrequited love, the thing that really sucks about it is that it's incredibly hard to move on from, but until you do move on, your brain keeps obsessing about it to the point where it can be impossible to get anything done. It had been 2 years of that when I made that post. 2 years of pining in pain and an ever-growing pile of crushed hopes, and I think I was going a little bit insane, constantly swinging between butterflies and love highs when I was with my friend and the crushing feeling of rejection every time he'd say goodbye. And the obsession over things like how long he'd look at me, how long he'd let a hug last, how fast he'd respond to my texts, things which could either make or break my entire day depending on what the answer was. On to the actual update after that primer. About a month and a half or so after I made that post, still trying to hype myself up to actually ask this man out, I accidentally became a head organizer for an event at the university I was studying at for the moment. Long story short, the person managing me was not kind. I was extremely overworked from the event on top of writing a thesis. I was equally stressed out in my private life due to the whole situation with my best friend, and I ended up going through a pretty severe case of burnout. Add on to everything that I developed an addiction to alcohol to try to handle everything, and was also experiencing what was most likely a drug-induced paranoid psychosis, and I was a mess. I ended up moving back in with my dad in September and spent about a year doing nothing but sleeping, crying, playing Skyrim, and going to rehab and therapy. Start of 2021, I went back to school and slowly recovered. I've been sober since 2020. The paranoia hasn't completely gone away, but it's more manageable, and I think I've got a work-life balance figured out that helps me not overwork myself or go into free time lethargy because I've got too much time off. It was long and painful, but I did it. If you're wondering where my best friend was in all of this, I honestly don't know. I went back to look at our text messages, and from what I can see, he tried to call me a few times in early September. I didn't respond, and then nothing until around Christmas when he wondered if I wanted to meet up sometime. I said yes, and then never followed through. He hasn't texted me since January 4th, 2020. Now, to be clear, I don't blame him for not reaching out more. My non-responding is what killed that friendship. I know because it also killed every other friendship I had at the time. I don't know, alcohol addiction, deep depression, and crippling paranoia may be a fair explanation to one day stop responding to any of your friends, but I still deeply regret those choices. If I were to make a relationships post today, it would be on how the hell you word an apology after behavior like that 5 years down the road. Sorry, I feel like this is starting to become a journal. I'm gonna stop my reflections there. So about my love for my best friend, with some years of hindsight and therapy behind me, I don't think I was in love with him. I think I was in love with the idea of him, and I think I was obsessed for sure, but looking back, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think a part of me really liked the fact that this was a person who so clearly wasn't interested in me. Genuinely, if he was, that would shock me to find out, because he spent 2.5 years ignoring the, in hindsight, very obvious attempts I made to deepen the relationship. Some examples include him saying he's waiting for the right person, me responding, "Sometimes I feel like I already have. Do you ever feel like that?" And him going, "Nah, I don't think so." Me following that up with, "Maybe you just don't know, the heart is weird sometimes," and him going, "I'm pretty sure I'd know." One time we talked about why people fall in love, and I genuinely tried to convince him a deep friendship was all you needed, while he insisted that there needed to be a level of sexual attraction as well. I tried to get him to do that 36 questions that will make you fall in love thing with me. I kept trying to find excuses to hold his hand, and him resolutely never going along with it. Ditto, but with hugs, arm touching, and sitting just a little too close whenever we went out, so I could hear him better, which he normally responded to by going, "We should go outside so you can hear better if it's too loud in here." Very thoughtful, but very much not what the goal was. One night when we were alone in my apartment after a club event, after a particularly long shared look, I asked him what he was thinking about in that kind of, I don't want to break the illusion, soft voice you put on when you're really close to someone you like, and his response was, "I don't know if I agree that Geertz's metaphor about blinking makes that much sense, actually." Another night when we were out together and there had been a lot of looks and closely leaned in laughing together, and he pulls me to one outside by the hand to talk to me about something, heart racing, only to ask me if I know if one of my friends is single because he thinks she's really cute and might have been looking at him all night. Looking back, at least some of this stuff is sort of funny. I have no idea if he knew or knows now that I was in love with him. I wouldn't be surprised if some of my old friends eventually told him, but of course, he's never reached out about it. But yes, I think I kind of liked the security of this person who clearly didn't like me back. Not that I was doing well with the heartache, but there's a certain kind of messed up comfort that comes from pining for someone who doesn't want you back. Like the highs I'd get when I got something that felt like confirmation made up for the lows of crying in my apartment stairway when I got home after a denial. Today, I mostly just feel so bad for him and ashamed of myself, regardless of whether he knew or not, and I'm trying to cling to the fact that he seemed to at least continue wanting to be friends as some indicator that he never felt creeped out or uncomfortable. My behavior was pretty creepy. And in the end, once I did get that distance between us, the feelings went away after some 6 months or so. My therapist recommended not meeting this person again for my own sake, and by early 2020, I wasn't so painfully in love anymore. A while later, I'd end up meeting a guy I clicked with just as much who actually liked me back and showed it. We've been together for almost 3 years now and are talking about starting to try for kids at some point soon. He'd like us to get married first, but is also insisting he wants to be the one to propose, so I'm just walking around waiting for the day. Even if it's not a huge surprise or secret, he just wants to get that moment of going down on one knee, and who am I to deny him? I'm slowly growing old and boring. I'm sober, I go to my boring, stable, middle career 9-to-5 job, I save for my retirement and traveling in the summers, I help my dad out on his farm, I crochet little animals for my newborn niece. I come home to a man who plays his silly video games, I play my silly video games, we go for walks and to the museum and bicker about whether to get fat on takeout or not. I have some regrets about how my early 20s ended up playing out, but by God, I wouldn't want to go back. User Dana Rexsaurus said, "This didn't go where I expected, but I am happy you've moved on from this. It sounds like you're in a good place. I was you about 8 years ago, pining desperately for my best friend. Our story ended differently, but honestly, it could have ended the very same way had I not told him how I felt. Growing distant and no longer even talking was definitely on the table. Because that's kind of the two outcomes, right? Get together or don't. You don't just get over someone when you're spending so much time and energy on them. They've got to go away for a while. Please be aware that mental health issues can be exacerbated by having a baby. Have a plan in place for that potential and never be afraid to ask for help." User Lunoko said, "Sorry to hear you went through a crisis and addiction, but I am glad things turned around for you. I think your assessment that it wasn't true love, but more idealized infatuation is right. If I had to guess, he likely knew you were interested in him, but he wasn't interested in a romantic relationship and kept you around because he liked the attention and the ego boost. These things are always easier to see in retrospect. It is a lot more difficult to see when you are in the thick of it. So don't feel too much shame about this part of your past. It was a confusing, emotional time for you and there were mixed messages. It is good to learn from the past and keep your mind set on the present and the future. Now you know what true love feels like. It is not so confusing and tumultuous, is it?" User Jakra said, "You say this isn't a happy update, but it absolutely is. You are in a fulfilling relationship. You are in a steady job with what sounds like a reasonable income that allows you to save for some nice things, and you have overcome your mental health issues and alcoholism. This is a brilliant update and a very happy one indeed. Give yourself way more credit. Well done." This next post was made in the same subreddit by a user named Realistic Dealer. The post is titled, "My wife will not work. My wife is a PhD student, which is how we originally met. Unfortunately, she's made zero progress on her dissertation for the past 4 years. On most days, she spends no time at all working on it. In fairness, a lot has happened in those 4 years. We got married, we had our son, her father passed away, and we moved multiple times. Even though we've been back near her university for about a year now, she has only gone in a few times. She attributes her struggle to depression and also experiences PMDD. She won't take any prescribed medication, preferring supplements and costly hypnotherapy, which so far hasn't seemed to help. I've done my best to support her in terms of childcare. Her mother lived with us for over a year to help, and she's currently back with us again. We've also had full-time nannies, and now our son is in preschool. Despite having these support systems, she still doesn't put time into her PhD. Whenever I raise the issue or try to see if there's a way I can help, she becomes very defensive and angry. Our couples therapist recommended she try just 2 hours of dissertation work a day, but she's only managed that once. As of writing this, she hasn't worked on it at all today, and it's nearly late afternoon. I'm covering all our bills right now, which is doable but leaves us with very little financial cushion each month. I'm starting to feel resentful, both because I worked very hard to finish my PhD and because my own future plans feel like they're slipping away under this financial and emotional pressure. One major concern is that I don't think I could handle my demanding job and full-time care of our toddler on my own if we were to separate. I'm somewhat dependent on her for childcare. She's great with our son. If not for our child, though, I suspect I might have walked away by now. I'm feeling stuck between wanting to support her, worrying about our future, and feeling frustrated at the lack of progress. Has anyone navigated a similar situation with a partner who's stalled academically or career-wise due to mental health issues? How can I approach this in a constructive, compassionate way that still addresses my resentment and our financial constraints? Any advice on how to have these conversations without it blowing up would be really appreciated. User Dr. Beerologist said, is she fully funded and does she need to teach? To this comment, OP said, sometimes she is. Last semester and this semester, she had to do labs all day on Fridays. She was a bit slow in grading, but she went in those days every week, even when she felt bad. She just doesn't touch her work that would allow her to graduate. User Popular Parsnip said, your mental health is also important, and it's unfair that you've been left to manage all the bills on your own without a clear plan from your wife regarding how she's going to work through her depression. Sit down with her and make some clear plans for the future. If she continues not to make any progress, then you may need to consider whether you want to spend the rest of your life in this situation. To this, OP said, yeah, I would be lying if I said that I have not been affected mentally. If I am not in a good mental state, it is difficult to be there for her. It is a cycle. This final post was made by a deleted user in the True Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "My ex got revenge on me in the worst way possible and I have no way to clear my name." Last year, I cheated on my ex-girlfriend of 8 years, Annie, with a colleague, Jess, with whom I now have a 3-week-old son. I have no excuse. It cost me my job and the majority of my friendships, along with the love of a good woman. I deserved it all, and I have never expected any sympathy for my actions. Annie delivered my belongings to my parents' house before I even knew she was aware of the cheating. She didn't confront me, she just cut me out of her life without a word. I messaged everyone we knew, begging them to ask her to talk to me, and I sent hundreds of messages telling her how much I regretted everything and wanted her back. I never got a response. Jess saw the messages, and it obviously caused issues between us in the beginning, but she fell pregnant quickly, so we moved past it for the sake of our family together, which we both wanted. I am 100% committed to the relationship and haven't even looked at another woman since things settled down. In the final stretch of Jess's pregnancy, about a month ago, I saw Annie in a shop for the first time since the breakup. She was pretty cold towards me, but said that a few months ago she found a keychain my granddad got me when I was very young. It's not valuable, but she knows it means a lot to me, and she said I could come collect it the following Saturday morning. I explained that was 6 days after Jess was due to give birth, so I'd probably need to be home, but she just said I could either get it on Saturday or it would go in the bin, so I agreed on a time to go over. My son was born a few days late, so he was less than 24 hours old on the Saturday I needed to collect the keychain. I planned to pop in on the way to the hospital, but when I got to my old house, Annie invited me in to talk about how things ended between us. I thought we had a good conversation and that both of us walked away with closure. She let me apologize for the way I treated her, wished me the best with my new family, and hugged me as I left. I admit I held on tightly for the hug, but it was purely because of relief, not lingering feelings. I spent less than an hour at her house and then headed to the hospital. I didn't tell Jess about any of this because I know she still feels insecure about Annie, and I didn't want to add fuel to that. When I arrived at the hospital after seeing Annie, Jess had revoked my access, and the ward manager wouldn't tell me why. I ended up being removed by a security guard because I was denied seeing my son for the second time ever and didn't respond well to being blindsided. I tried calling Jess and her mom over and over, and the only response I got was a screen recording of a message from Annie. It was doorbell footage of me walking through the door at 9:30 and then back out just after 10:15, and the hug is only partly caught, so it does look like we could have been kissing. The message Annie sent with it said, "Did he even shower and change his clothes between sleeping with me and holding his son? Congratulations on being stuck with him for the next 18 years. I hope it's everything you dreamed of." No one believes this is a setup at all. It's something I would never have expected from Annie, and no one else would either, so they're completely rejecting the idea that this is a lie. I sent her a message asking why she did this, assuming I'd still be blocked. Her response was that she wasn't going to let me play innocent, and that I may have deleted all of our messages over the past few months, but she hasn't. Obviously, there are no messages, but she blocked me again right after, so I have nothing at all to exonerate myself. She waited in silence for almost a year and then took the most cruel and vindictive revenge she possibly could. I have met my son once, minutes after he was born, and now Jess is refusing any contact with me and won't let me see him. Court will take months, and my heart hurts every minute of every day. I know what I did to Annie was horrible, but I don't deserve this. I have no one to talk to about it because not even my own mother believes me. Her only question was why I ruined my life with a baby when Annie was willing to reconcile, and that's about the most supportive thing she said to me since I was dumped. The few friends who stuck with me are assuming the worst too, and it's killing me that not a single person I know sees this for what it is. Everything is ruined. User Informal Style said, "The fact that you withheld the information because of what you perceived as her insecurities was really your own insecurities regarding a painful truth you kept from your wife. Had you been honest about why you were going in the first place and had someone go with you, she may have been mad, but she would have had no reason to be insecure about Annie. You walked into a trap of your own creation. Sorry, but honesty is the best policy." User Redhead said, "Why are you trying to make it seem like you had no choice but to lie? You could have told Jess at any time. Her being insecure is just an excuse. The mistress being insecure is hilarious because she had zero problems with helping to ruin Annie's relationship with you, but you can't even mention Annie's name to her. Good on Annie. Both you and Jess are going to get the lives you deserve." User What a Good Sniff said, "I honestly don't feel bad for you. You cheated on your ex of 8 years. Lo and behold, that woman was a vindictive person. You created your own reputation, and you refused to let your pregnant partner know what your plans were. You could have told her, 'Hey, I bumped into Annie, and she has my granddad's keychain. I'd like for her to leave it on her doorstep, and I will go pick it up and leave. It shouldn't take more than a minute.' You dove headfirst into the Black Widow's web."